Shabbat Shalom. My name is Shaun Cairns and I'm your host today. Welcome to Spirit and Truth. How do you react to fear? How do you respond to uncertain situations that cause you to feel vulnerable? How do you react when the actions of others put your own life in danger? How do you react when you receive a negative response to your health? How do you respond when everything you've placed your hope in crumbles? In this week's Torah portion, Jacob found himself in a situation that caused him to feel that his life and his whole household were in danger. You see, the incident that triggered the situation started with the violation of Jacob's daughter. Dinah was pursued by Shechem the Hivite, and in order to take back their sister and redeem the family honor, two of Jacob's sons killed all the men of the city of Shechem. You see, Jacob then responded to his sons with the following words and rebuked them. In Bereshit, Genesis chapter 34, 30 to 31, we see this following rebuke. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me by making me odious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and my men being few in number, they will gather together against me and attack me, and I will be destroyed, I and my household." But they said, "Should he treat our sister as a harlot?" You see, beloved, Simeon and Levi felt that they needed to defend their sister, fight for the family honor, and punish those connected to the sister's violation. However, Jacob had no shalom regards to Simeon and Levi's behavior. Jacob became anxious and concerned. Jacob and his family had recently returned to the promised land after having sojourned in Padan Aram for 20 years. Jacob had barely finished making peace with his father-in-law Laban, and then separating from his twin brother Esau. When Jacob now felt like he was again in a hostile position with those around him, Jacob believed the actions of his sons in murdering all the men in Shechem would cause others around him to rise up again and kill him and his family. You see, he's just running. He was running from his brother. Jacob was running from his brother Esau because his brother wanted to kill him. And finally, after 20 years, he finds peace, and then his sons creates more problems, putting him again in a vulnerable position. The question I have, was Jacob's fear justified? How should Jacob have responded in the situation? Let me ask you a question. How would you respond if you were in Jacob's shoes? Your daughter was raped by your enemy, and instead of you responding, your sons decide to take revenge to defend your family's honor. How would you respond if you were Jacob in that situation? You see, it is interesting to read the immediate reaction of Jacob to his sons. Jacob's initial response was to relate how the situation would affect him. And he makes the statement in Bereshit chapter 34. You have brought trouble on me by making me odious amongst the inhabitants of the land. You see, Jacob was immediately concerned with how everyone in the surrounding cities and tribes would react to the newcomers in the land. You see, they had just began to settle in the land, living at peace with all of their enemies around them. Jacob wanted to hang low, make friends in the land, and enjoy raising his family. Instead, Jacob now had to worry if the surrounding peoples would attack him. Jacob had been running for 20 years from Esau. He finally reconciled with Esau, but now he had new enemies, and Jacob feels again vulnerable. Hey, how many times when you think, my life is okay, my finances is good, my health is great, my family is doing great, to receive the bad news, your finances plunder. Just when you think you're okay, just when you think life is good, you get a bad doctor's report. Just when you think things are good, your son goes on to drugs. You discover he's on drugs. He's an alcoholic. Just when you think life is good, something bad happens. And right now there are many that's listening to me that have experienced that type of feeling. You become vulnerable in your situation. You see, in the natural, we can easily identify with Jacob's situation. He and his household were new in the land, and they had no real tribal coalitions with the locals except for the people whom Jacob's sons just murdered. So Jacob feared for his life and his household. And I guess many of us will feel the same way when tragedy comes upon us. But again, let me ask you a question. How should one respond in this type of situation? How should we react to fear? You see, it's easy to speak when you're on the other side of the line. But when you are going through that situation and you are the person dealing with it, how do you react to the fear, to the voices of the enemy? You see, more than likely, none of us will face the exact same scenario that Jacob faced with his family. However, we all face circumstances beyond our control that cause us to fear for one's life, together with one's family or community. You see, thankful in Jacob's situation, Yahuwah spoke directly to him and told him the next steps to take. You see, when you go to scripture, you can see that this is where Elohim speaks to him in Bereshit chapter 35 verses 1. It says, Then Yahuwah said to Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel and live there, and make an altar there to Yahuwah, who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. I love this, because the minute Jacob was fearing for his life, he gets a word. You need a word from the Father. He says to him, Arise and go to Beit El. Go to the house of God and live there and make an altar there to Elohim. You see, Elohim understood exactly what Jacob was facing. And I want to tell you today, don't think that your situation that you are facing is not known to Elohim. He knows everything. He is the Aleph and the Tav. You see, Too often we allow or we wallow in our misery and desperate situation. But as we see in the situation with Jacob, what is the instruction that he gets? You see, many times when we get the bad news, oh, you're about to lose your job. Oh, you have diabetes. Oh, you have cancer. Oh, you've got this disease, that disease. Oh, your son is on drugs. Oh, your son is an alcoholic. Your daughter is wayward. The minute we receive negative news, we start to wallow. We become pitiful. We have this pity party. But what does Elohim say to Jacob? He says, go up and worship me. Beloved, I'm telling you today that when you receive the negative news, the negative report, the first thing you've got to do is go up and worship the King of Kings. It's faith, not fear. Half of the battle with fear is getting the focus off of ourselves and onto the one who can do immeasurably more than we could ask or imagine. You see, Elohim told Jacob to arise and go to Beit El and build an altar to Elohim, who appeared to him when he fled from Esau. Why did Elohim give Jacob this particular command again? You see, my brother and my sister, you're sitting here, you are listening to me. You have to remember the power and the promises of Yahuwah. Jacob was running scared again. However, unlike 20 years prior, when he fled in fear from his brother Esau as a single man, he now had 4 wives and 11 children. All of this being true, Yahuwah was reminding Jacob that just like he met him on the journey to Padan Aram and took care of him as he promised when he ran from Esau, he would do it again this time. Beloved, I don't know what you have gone through. I don't know. I can tell you, I've gone through so many things in my life. But when I look back and I see the goodness of Elohim and what he has done for me, I cannot forsake him. He is faithful and he's true. Look at what he has brought you through. Is there anything too hard for me? Yeshua said, nothing is impossible if you just believe. I want to break up the word nothing. And I want to say that no thing, there's no thing that's impossible for him. I don't care what you are going through. I don't care what you are facing. I don't care what your diseases that you have, where your finances are. But I know of one who cares and loves you. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your cares upon Elohim, for he cares for you. You see, Jacob did not need to be afraid. Jacob needed to simply worship Elohim and trust him. Beloved, it's time to cultivate a lifestyle of worship. We need to know that when trouble comes, when the negative report comes, the first thing I need to do is go to Beit El and build an altar of worship and worship the one who has carried me through my life. Whenever we are facing challenging and difficult situations in life, we need to look to Elohim and not to ourselves, not to your doctor, not to your bank manager, not to your job, not to your business, not to your bank account. You've got to keep your eyes fixed on Yeshua, the author and the finisher of our faith. He knows the end from the beginning. You see, Jacob had immediately considered his own strength and the small numbers in his family when considering the retaliation of the peoples around him. But Elohim redirected Jacob back to the true source of his strength and told him to obey his voice and worship the Elohim whom he'd first met at Bethel. And sometimes we get caught up in our situations. Our circumstances become bigger than the one that we serve. And sometimes we need to be reminded, like Jacob, go back to the place where you met me. I'm speaking to someone today. Go back to the place where you met me, because there I will give you the victory. There I will make you more than a conqueror. Beloved, this is such a wonderful lesson of faith that we can draw from Jacob in Shechem and what has happened. In the midst of the circumstances beyond our ability, we will all certainly face obstacles and enemies greater and stronger than ourselves and our means along the way in our lives. Whatever you are going through, whatever you are dealing with, it's not too hard for the one that we serve. This account of Jacob and his situation reminds us to always worship Elohim first with our lives and focus on him and not ourselves. Yeshua says in Matthew 6:33, seek first my kingdom and my righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Who are you seeking when trouble comes? Jacob obeyed the word of Yahuwah, which he had spoken to him at that time, and he gave his family specific instructions in keeping the command of Yahuwah. Bereshit chapter 35 verses 2 to 7 says, so Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him, put away the foreign gods which are among you, and purify yourself, and change your garments, and let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make an altar there to Elohim, who answered me in the day of my distress, and has been with me wherever I have gone. So they gave to Jacob all their foreign gods which they had, and the rings which were in their ears. And Jacob hid them under the oak which was near Shechem. As they journeyed, there was a great terror upon the cities which were around them, and they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. So Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, which is in the land of Canaan. He and all the people who were with him, he built an altar there and called the place El Bethel, because there Elohim had revealed himself to him when he fled from his brother. Is it time for you to purify yourself? Is it time for you to change your garments and arise and go to the house of Elohim? Yahuwah called Jacob to build an altar and worship him at Bethel, the house of God. Jacob instructed his family to put away from them any false or foreign gods, and to purify themselves in preparation for the journey to Bethel. In response to the obedience of Jacob and his family, the word of Yahuwah, the terror of Elohim, fell on the peoples around him. I got news for you. When we walk in obedience and we respond to the word of Elohim, and we turn to him first, and we purify ourselves, and we put on garments, I'm telling you that even your enemies will experience the terror of Elohim. No sickness can be in his midst. No form of lack can be in his midst. You have to cultivate a life of worship. Too often, beloved, we limit Elohim's power in our lives because you know why? We act in fear and not in faith. When we strive in the flesh and react to our enemies in the flesh, we will fight with the weapons of this world. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They are mighty in the pulling down of strongholds. We fight principalities and powers in high places, beloved. When we walk in faith together with the Elohim of heaven and earth and worship Him in accordance with His word, we give room for Him to prove His power in this world in a manner which is supernatural. It's because we are not giving Him the opportunity to move, because we are taking matters in our own hands. There's a wonderful saying that we always listen, and you probably heard it many times. Let go and let God. Many times we hold on to our situation. We hold on because we think that in my own strength I'm able to fix it. We need to learn to listen to the voice of Elohim in every situation and seek first to worship Him with our lives. In doing so, we will allow Elohim to take care of our situations that are beyond our control and to eliminate all fear. You see, worship helps us remember to whom we belong, and it invites Yahuwah to fight on our behalf. You see, in the renewed covenant, the Brit Chadasha, we are reminded to continually rejoice in Yahuwah and not to be anxious, and we must seek and choose this path in order to live a life with Elohim at the lead. Philippians 4, chapter 4, verses 4 to 7. Rejoice in Yahuwah always. And Paul says, again I will say, rejoice. Let your gentle spirit be known to all men. Elohim is near. He says, be anxious for nothing. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication. Beloved, here's the key. Here's the key. With thanksgiving, let your requests be known to Yahuwah. And the peace of Elohim, the shalom, nothing missing, nothing lacking, nothing broken, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Yeshua the Messiah. The shalom of Elohim in our lives is only possible when we choose to worship Him with our lives and lay everything at His feet. This is not a one-time event, but it's a continual way of life. It's a lifestyle change. It's a continual way of life that is intentional in trusting Him. You have to be intentional in trusting Elohim. A life of worship of the Elohim of heaven through the Messiah, Yahushua Mashiach, will bring peace into our lives and the lives of our family members, while allowing the power and protection of Yahuwah to surround us in our communities. And so I want to encourage you, continue to live a life of worship. When you stay close to the Master with Him at the lead, nothing will be too hard for Him. May you have a blessed week this week. May you go in the power of the Ruach HaKodesh. May you go with Him leading you this week, knowing that nothing is too hard for Him. That if He did it for you once, He will do it for you again. It's not a one-time affair. It's a lifestyle to worship this King. Shabbat Shalom to you and Shavua Tov. And now, may Yahuwah bless you and keep you. May Yahuwah lift up His countenance upon you and give you Shalom wherever you go. May He make His face to shine upon you. May He be with you wherever you go this week. Whatever you're going to do, I declare that this week will be a good week for you. That there will be, this coming Shabbat will be a testimony that you can share with people and say, look what Yahuwah has done for me. And may His favor surround you like a sun and a shield. May you be blessed in the city and blessed in the country. And may you eat from vineyards you haven't planted. And may His healing hand be your portion in the mighty and matchless name of His Son, Yahushua Mashiach. Amen.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring Torah portion teaching by Shaun Cairns. Spirit and Truth is committed to re-establishing the faith once delivered to the saints without compromise, empowered and guided by the Ruach HaKodesh. If this teaching ministry is a blessing to you and your family, won't you consider partnering with us and help us take the word of Elohim to the ends of the earth? Find our bank details below to sow your partner seed today. Shalom.